Hello, hockey, basketball, and soccer fans. My name is David. Thought I would start this video on Saturday, 3rd of June, 2023, 5:31 North American Eastern Time, 9:31 GMT. So it's a lot to talk about. It's been kind of like a weekend review. So I thought I would start with the International Ice Hockey Federation Adult Men's World Tournament, which took place, whose last two playoff rounds took place last weekend. So, last week at Easter time. So, the quarterfinals featured quite a few surprises. Switzerland upset by its Germany counterpart. There's one of them. The other was bye-bye Sweden against its Latvian counterpart. The other teams finished the top two spots in their respective divisions. The Canadian adult men's team beating its Finnish counterpart, finishing off its one of the co-hosts. So it's kind of a mixed bag for the co-host countries. So Finland did not see its adult men's team get a medal, whilst the Latvian adult men's team did. Well, the game was closer between the Latvian and Canadian teams in that semifinal, but Latvia would end up winning another close game in overtime over its American counterpart to win bronze. So it's very interesting. Quarterfinal. It's also in the round robin. There was this Joe Veleno, center for the Detroit Red Wings, stomping on Niederreiter with a skate blade. Well, that featured a 5-game suspension applicable only to IHF administered tournaments. Well, because the Canadian adult men's team played 5 games beyond the game in which the incident occurred, for which Veleno was not ejected, he will be free and clear to come back if he wants, if he is selected to a future IHF Adult Men's World Tournament. It's also this hit from behind by Adam Fantilli, which he was ejected. The center for Canada's Adult Men's team was ejected. He did not receive further disciplinary action from the IHF. Surprising, given that he was ejected and was a match penalty, whatever. Then we talk about game one of the Germany-Switzerland quarterfinal, and Mo Seider, defenseman for the Detroit Red Wings, being Mogon due to a hit from behind, and Seider indeed had to miss a game. Well, it was a suspension during which he would have to sit out a semifinal between his homeland's adult men's team and its American counterpart. That said, the German team managed to do quite fine without him, being the American one in overtime. Yes, the Canadians winning the gold for the 4th or 5th straight gold medal game. That wasn't an Olympic one, whereas not since 1950 has an American adult men's team managed to win a medal, or haven't managed to win a gold or silver, unless that tournament has been an Olympic one. World Championships were Olympic ones from the 1920s to the 1960s, if held during any year when divided by 4 had created an integer. So, for instance, the 1920 tournament, we have 1920 divided by 4, we have 0.5, we're 480. So yeah, that creates an integer, so yes. So the 1920 World Championship, IHF Adult Men's World Championship, was an Olympic championship. So that was the way things were. Things would go. That's a very interesting one. And other developments around the NHL. Kyle Dubas becoming president of hockey ops for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Man, does he have his work cut out for him in the offseason. After the Pens just missed out on postseason action. Yet even before then, the Pens had lost had lost 4 straight playoff series. Had lost in 4 straight seasons a playoff series without a win of any type. So it made it just as well that it was a message that Pens had needed to really think about which direction they had wanted to go. But it's a good thing the Duke was gone because he wasn't very effective when it came to creating a playoff team. Great regular season, but postseason, not good. Very much like the Swiss adult men's team during relevant IHF tournaments. The IHF Worlds. Last week, I believe, quarterfinals ended up being beaten. And then you have the American ones, and they end up not medaling. Finishing 4th. 2 straight overtime losses will do that. But again, it's been 10 of 11 last tournament, previous tournaments, Olympic and World Championship, with respect to Canada's under 18 teams, men's and women's, under 20 men's team, and the adult teams, men's and women's, getting medals all over the place. That's following the Beijing 2022 Olympic Games. The adult men's team was shut out in its quarterfinal in the Olympics, so ended up not going anywhere. Ended up finishing outside the top 4. Did finish in second, but not finishing in the top second place position. Ended up meaning having to play an extra game to get to qualify, being getting to face the host mainland Chinese team that had automatically qualified for the Olympic Games. So yes, it's that's what the Leafs are. Great, regular season, not much of a problem, but the postseason, they end up winning just 1 game beyond an opening round series. So let's see about the Leafs. Well, yeah. So no surprise that Leafs have a new GM in place after Tubis was canned, albeit not for reasons one might expect him. Might have expected him to have been canned. So yes, that means Brendan Shanahan hired one-time Flames GM Brad Treliving, a dear son of now retired ex-CBC Dragon's Den panelist Jim Treliving from the Boston Pizza Empire. Well, let's see what the younger Treliving manages to do. Got a bunch of unrestricted free agents. I believe there were 10. And then there's Ilya Samsonov, who's a restricted free agent with arbitration rights. So who knows? There are others as well. So then there's the issue of which member of the Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Nylander quartet should be traded this offseason. It's tempting to run back the same quartet, but the evidence is rather weak in my view in doing so. I'm not saying trade all members of the quartet, but we'll have to see what happens. Let's see what the younger Treliving decides to do. After all, 10 unrestricted free agents will not be easy to just simply replace. It may be that this is an opportunity to move out a member of the quartet of the Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Nylander quartet to get something back to replace those unrestricted free agents who may decide not to re-sign with the Leafs. So it's going to be a very interesting offseason. Hopefully the Leafs will end up in a conference final next season, but it's hard to know. It's just extremely difficult to know. Depends how the offseason goes, and it's not like the Leafs have loads of prospects in the pipeline who have performed quite well. Secondary scoring was a big problem during the most recent season. The Boston Bruins, when the Leafs faced off against quite a number of mid-tier teams below them. They did knock off some wins and all, but yes, they did lose to really bad teams. But there were times when they lost to really good teams, by a country mile. 5-2 in February to the Boston Bruins, when Austin Matthews had been out due to injury. And I mean, and then there was against January against the Seattle Kraken. Lack of scoring, another problem there. Scoring 2 goals or less over 7 of the Leafs' last 7 playoff games did that team in. And the Leafs ended up winning 2. Surprisingly, they ended up even winning 1 when they had scored a maximum of 2 goals. But ultimately, the lack of scoring from up and down the lineup did them in. Defense got to be improved. There's a lot of things to do, but again, hopefully they'll get it done. It's just at the moment, it's hard to know how this roster is going to go, but hopefully it'll be better. All right, so we're not doing nothing there. Memorial Cup, definitely watched a few games, quite a number of games. Late ones because they were in Kamloops in the British Columbia interior. So start anywhere from Eastern time, or at least broadcast start anywhere from 9 to 10. So those are some late ones, but again, I'm used to those because during the NHL season, some of my favorite teams play games that are that late. Yes, I know that among Eastern Conference teams, Eastern Canadian teams, there are quite a few as well that are that can be considered to be late games if they're played at night. I mean, when I look at the Leafs playing the Jets, well, the Alberta teams and the Canucks, so that's 3 Leafs. So like there are 9 games between Canadian teams that are considered to be, if involving Eastern Conference ones, may have potential of starting quite late. Or at least broadcast starting no earlier than 9 Eastern. No, earlier than 9 Eastern. I mean, Winnipeg's a bit more centralized because it's in Central Time Zone. But then there are those matches, involving other Western teams. It's going to be lots of those. The regular season schedule is expected to come out for the upcoming NHL season, sometime in July. Thought I would mention now the Stanley Cup. Game 1 will be on all Sportsnet regional channels and Sportsnet 1. So this is the time there, 8 Eastern, 7:30 Hockey Central. I may watch that game. I'll have a horse in the race, but it'll be nice to see an NHL team that has yet to win the Stanley Cup actually win one. Panthers got to a cup final in the 1990s, but ended up not winning that final. The Golden Knights in 2018, by having beaten the Jets in a conference final, ended up in a cup final, but losing in that round. Both teams have a lot on the line. That being said, that they've gotten to a cup final will hopefully send a message to the Canadian teams that they got up the game. The Oilers ended up coming the closest among Canadian teams to a cup final, losing in the second round in 6 games. The Leafs end up losing in 5. But again, it's the way things are. It's what can you do? On the other hand, So we'll have to see what happens during the off season. If the Leafs can add grit, mental, players who understand that there's a winning mindset, forecheck, opening up shooting lanes and all that are so necessary to score in the postseason when scoring is, has often been more at a premium than during the regular season. Let's see what happens. But again, Austin Matthews and William Nylander have contracts expire at the end of next season. Marner and Tavares have contracts that are valid beyond next season. It'll be interesting to find out which trades Leaf GM Treliving makes, if he does. But again, running the same team back, it's just not going to work, in my view. So I hope that Treliving understands that running back the core as is won't work. It's a question now of what Matthews decides to do. If Matthews decides to sign an extension, that's great. The question will be for what amount. However, if Matthews decides he wants to walk or he's not so sure, then I think Treliving needs to shop Matthews around this month and trade him for some assets. After all, if Matthews is not going to stay, it's time to do at least a retool, at least to move him on. It may be that Treliving has no choice, because keeping the core together will just mean it'll be together for only one season, and then Matthews walks, and Leafs will get nothing. So hopefully, Treliving will do what his Canucks counterpart Alvin did during the Canucks' most recent season, and that is moving on. But doing maybe a bit earlier, moving on from a star player who indicates he is not going to re-sign with the current team. Alvin decided that with Bo Horvat not wanting to re-sign with the Canucks for a cap hit that had been low enough for the Canucks to accept, meant moving on and trying to get some assets, which the Canucks did. How good they were, well, the Canucks did go on a tear in March, with Thatcher Demko having returned from a long-term injury stint, from a more than 2-month-long injury stint. But again, it was too little, too late, and the Canucks relied too much on Demko, and had to see what happens with goaltending, and particularly with Connor Hellebuck potentially not wanting to stay with the Jets beyond the upcoming season. So yes, it's a Stanley Cup, and what to do with Sheldon Keefe? Well, Leafs have a head coach. The Raptors, after Masai Ujiri, the president, had fired Nick Nurse, still don't have one. There's talk about Sergio Scariolo being a head coach of the Raptors, but let's see what happens. But it just, for the love of God, President Ujiri, let's get this act together. Let's get this coaching hire sorted out, and also the direction of the team. It's just, I know maybe you're doing things, but it's time to get on with things. Give this team a direction, so that hopefully we see playoff success this decade. That would be what I would like to see. It may be that this coming season the Raptors will end up tanking, end up getting a good draft, a good first-round draft pick. I don't know. But that trade with that first-rounder involving Jakob Poeltl, who knows what he's going to do, what Poeltl's going to do. He may walk at some point this month. I mean, who knows what's going to happen to Fred VanVleet? I mean, who I've seen shoot a whole bunch of three-pointers. Again, it's so hard to know. What about Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes? Can Ujiri keep this team together? I'm not confident. In terms of in Masai we trust, at one point I did. At least up to and including the end of the 2019-20 NBA season. But this many seasons without a playoff series win means my trust has gone down. Yes, that season might have been bad, but the Raptors could have adjusted. There are, a lot of the rosters are American, who were born in the contiguous U.S., so they should have been used to playing away from home. Maybe not all their games away from Toronto, but a number of them. But the way it was, so it's just, the Raptors did improve during the 2021-22 season, but this past season was an embarrassment. It's time for a new direction, and hopefully that will happen. The NBA final, I don't know. I'm not going to watch it, but I'd have to educate myself on which teams are in, and all that, whether either the Nuggets or the Heat have won an NBA final, but there's no doubt that either the Golden Knights and that neither the Golden Knights nor Panthers have won a Stanley Cup final. I want to go. Definitely look forward to watching the games. And on that note, I'm going to say, in terms of various Canadian teams, go Canada, go Leafs, go, and go Raps, go, and go Toronto FC, go.